Your children are far too disruptive for civilized gatherings. Maybe it is time you start leaving them with a sitter, my sister-in-law announced at Easter brunch loud enough for all 40 family members to hear, while my 4-year-old quietly colored. At the kids' table I smiled calmly, packed our things and agreed that we would skip future events. I watched satisfaction spread across her face, as she assumed she had just won some silent power struggle. What Caroline did not realize as family gatherings began mysteriously disappearing one by one over the next few months was that the disruption she had just banished was not my children. It was me, the anonymous benefactor who had quietly paid for every Whitman family gathering for the past 5 years. In our Connecticut town, the Whitman family events were legendary. Generations gathered monthly at the Fairfield Country Club, catered meals, open bars and activities for dozens of cousins, aunts, uncles and relatives who treated these invitations like royal summons. My husband James was the middle child of 5, successful enough as a lawyer, but always overshadowed by his older brother Richard and his hedge fund career, and his younger sister Catherine, who married old money. Then there was Caroline. Richard's wife. She married into the family 15 years ago, and immediately appointed herself the social architect of the Whitman clan. Elegant, exclusive, flawless, and completely intolerant of anything that disrupted her idea of perfection. My children, Lily 4 and Max 6, were normal kids. They laughed, they played, they occasionally spilled juice or needed a bathroom break during Great Aunt Mildred's endless speeches. To Caroline, they were chaos, especially compared to her daughters, who sat perfectly still in matching designer dresses like porcelain doll. Children should be seen and not heard, she would say at every gathering, watching my kids like they offended her existence. I tried everything: quiet activities, perfect timing, extra supervision, even hiring a sitter to shadow us. Nothing was ever enough. Lily laughed. It was disruptive. If Max asked his grandfather a question, it was rude. But Easter was different. Lily was seated with the other kids, carefully coloring a picture for her grandmother. She was silent, still polite, and yet Caroline stood at the head table like she was delivering a corporate presentation. Your children are simply too disruptive for civilized gatherings, she announced, listing imaginary offenses. Perhaps it is time to leave them with a sitter for everyone's comfort. The room froze. 40 people stared. James started to stand, anger flooding his face. I stopped him gently. You know what, Carolyn? You are absolutely right. I stood, smoothed my dress, and smiled. We will not bring our children anymore. Come on, kids, let's go home, James. Some mother tried to protest, but Caroline's smile told me everything. Finally, she said, now we can have proper adult conversations again. In the car, James exploded. We cannot just stop going. These are family events. Your mother sat there while my children were humiliated, I said, quietly, and what James did not know was that this suited me perfectly. For 5 years, I had been anonymously paying for every one of those events. It started years earlier, when the recession hit and family gatherings slowly faded. I had just sold my tech startup for more money than I ever imagined. James knew I did well. He did not know how well. So when an anonymous donation appeared in the Whitman Family Trust, earmarked for family unity, no one suspected the quiet New Western author. Money arrived through layered LLCs and foundations. $50,000 for summer gatherings, $75,000 for Christmas. Gallus Corallian immediately took control, claiming she negotiated everything. In reality, she was spending my money while making my children feel unwelcome, and now she had handed me the perfect reason to stop. 2 weeks after Easter, the calls began: reservations, cancelled caterers, unavailable venues. Suddenly, booked. Carolyn panicked. She blamed vendors' timing, miscommunication, but the truth was simple: the money was gone by. Summer, the gatherings stopped. By fall, the traditions vanished. By winter, there was nothing left to plan on. For the first time in years, my children were not excluded. They were free. Caroline never confronted Mesh, never asked, because deep down she already knew. She wanted control. Instead, she lost everything. And my children, they were never the problem. They were the proof. Something about non-payment. Oh, how odd, I said, watching Max build Legos in our sunny playroom. I'm sure Caroline will sort it out. Well, that's just it. She says the family trust's account that pays for these things is empty. How is that possible? We don't know. Richard's looking into it, but in the meantime we're having to cancel the Mother's Day brunch. I made appropriate sounds of sympathy while drafting an email to my financial manager. confirming the cessation of all anonymous donations. To the Whitman Family Trust, by June, the cancellations were piling up. The Memorial Day barbecue, the Father's Day golf tournament, the 4th of July celebration, all scrapped. Caroline tried to maintain control by suggesting more intimate gatherings at various homes, but without catered food and hired help. Her enthusiasm waned quickly. "It's so strange," James said one evening, scrolling through family group texts. "Mum says they can't figure out what happened to the trust money. It's just gone." "Maybe whoever was donating decided to stop," I suggested, stirring pasta sauce, made from tomatoes our children had helped grow in our garden. The kind of simple, chaotic family activity Caroline would have despised, but why now, after all these years? Who knows, maybe they didn't feel appreciated anymore. The family WhatsApp group became increasingly frantic. Caroline tried to rally everyone to contribute personal funds, but the amounts she suggested were astronomical, $500 per family for a simple barbecue. Cousin Janet texted, "We used to do this in backyards for $50. "If we want to maintain standards," Caroline began. "Your standards," Catherine shot back, "which apparently none of us can afford." The civil war I'd accidentally started was fascinating to watch. Without the elaborate events to plan, Caroline's role in the family diminished. She tried hosting a few gatherings at her home, but without professional caterers and staff. Her perfectionist tendencies made everyone miserable. She actually used a ruler to space the place settings, James reported, after attending one dinner without us. And she kept apologizing for having to use her everyday china. It was exhausting. Meanwhile, our home became the refuge for family members who missed the chaos Caroline had banished. Ellen started visiting weekly for messy Wednesdays where the kids painted, baked, and played without worrying about noise levels. James' siblings dropped by for impromptu dinners where paper plates were perfectly acceptable, and spilled juice was met with laughter, not lectures. "I miss having everyone together," Ellen confided one afternoon watching Lily chase butterflies in our backyard, "but I have to admit these smaller gatherings are easier, more real. Family doesn't need country clubs and caterers," I said. "It just needs connection." Caroline doesn't see it that way. She's convinced someone is sabotaging her. Sabotaging her? How? She thinks someone deliberately stopped the donations to make her look bad. Richard hired a forensic accountant to trace the money. My stomach tightened, but I kept my voice steady. "Any luck?" "None. Whoever set it up really knew what they were doing. The trail goes through so many foundations and trusts, it's impossible to follow that." Evening, I told James, "Everything. You've been funding my family's parties for 5 years. He stared at me across our kitchen table. "The country club, the caterers, everything. I wanted your family to stay connected after the recession. Everyone was struggling and gatherings were becoming rare. I could help, so I did anonymously." "Would your brother have accepted charity from his younger brother's wife? Would Caroline have let me contribute to her events?" James was quiet for a long moment. "And you stopped because of what she said about the kids." "I stopped because I realized I was funding my own family's exclusion. Every check I wrote paid for another event where Caroline could tell me my children weren't welcome. We should tell them." "No," I was firm on this. "The money's gone. Let them figure out what family means without it." But secrets have a way of surfacing, especially in families that share a group text. It was Richard who finally connected the dots. He'd always been sharp. You don't run a hedge fund without pattern recognition skills. He showed up at our door on a random Tuesday, looking like he'd aged 5 years in as many months. "It was you," he said without preamble. "The donations, the trust, all of it." James stepped aside to let his brother in. I kept loading the dishwasher, waiting. The forensic accountant found a pattern in the donations. They always came right after Marissa's company hit certain milestones. The amounts corresponded to percentages of publicly reported revenues. He sat heavily at our kitchen counter. "How much did you really sell for?" "Enough," I said simply. "Enough to fund 5 years of family gatherings without James even knowing." James knew I did well. He didn't need to know how well Richard rubbed his face. "Do you know what this means? Carolyn has been taking credit for events you paid for. She's been..." He stopped, the full implications hitting him. "She banned your kids from gatherings you were funding. Ironic, isn't it? Mortifying. My wife has been horrible to you while spending your money. She didn't know it was mine. That doesn't make it better." He looked genuinely distressed. "Marissa, I'm so sorry for all of it. The way she's treated you, the kids, everything. I don't want apologies, Richard. I want change." "What kind of change?" I dried my hands slowly, choosing my words. "The family survived before the money, and it'll survive after, but only if you All remember what actually matters, not the country club, or the perfect place settings, or the proper behavior, the connections. The chaos, the kids, who might be loud, but are learning what family means by watching us. Caroline won't see it that way. Then Caroline can host her own gatherings, with her own money and her own guest list. The rest of the family seems to be figuring out alternatives. He was quiet for a moment. The 4th of July is coming up. Catherine offered to host at her place potluck. Style, kids, explicitly welcome sounds lovely. Would you and James bring? Lily and Max, are you sure we might disrupt the civilized atmosphere? He flinched at his wife's words, thrown back. I hope you do. God knows we could use some real life. In this family, Agonata, he left James, wrapped his arms around me. You'll realize the whole family's going to know by dinner time. Good, I'm tired of secrets. Caroline's going to lose her mind. That's a her problem, not a me problem, the family. Group chat exploded that night. Richard had gone home, and in true Whitman fashion, immediately told Catherine, who told their mother, who told everyone else. My phone buzzed, non-stop, with variations of shock, gratitude, and mortification. Marissa is. The anonymous donor cousin Janet texted Caroline, banned her from events she paid for. Ellen called crying, darling, I'm so ashamed. We let Caroline treat you terribly while you were giving so generously. I didn't do it for recognition. Ellen, I did. If a family which makes her behavior even worse, we forgot what that meant. Caroline notably went radio silent. Richard reported she'd locked herself in their bedroom, alternating between rage and humiliation, the woman who had built her identity on being the family's social coordinator had discovered. She'd been a puppet dancing on strings held by the person she'd deemed most unworthy of Aaron's 4th of July party was the antithesis of Caroline's events. Mismatched chairs on the lawn, burgers burned on one side, kids running through sprinklers fully clothed. Lily and Max were in heaven chasing cousins with sparklers while adults actually relaxed instead of performing. This is nice, Ellen said, sitting beside me on a weathered bench. Reminds me of when the children were young, before we got so caught up in impressions. It's what I hoped to preserve with the donations. I admit the togetherness, not the fancy trappings, but somewhere along the way it became about the show instead of the substance. Caroline arrived late, alone, looking like she'd rather be anywhere else. She moved through the party like a ghost, wincing every time a child shrieked with joy or someone ate potato salad with their fingers. Finally, as the sun set and the kids sprawled on blankets waiting for fireworks, she approached me. I suppose you're very pleased with yourself, she said stiffly. I'm pleased my children are playing with their cousins. Beyond that, I haven't thought much about it. You humiliated me, you humiliated yourself. I just stopped enabling it. She flinched. I didn't know. Would it have mattered if you'd known the money was mine? Would you have treated my children differently, or would you have just been more careful about hiding your disdain? He thought I was maintaining standards. Whose standards? Because they weren't this family's. Look around, Caroline. Look at your nieces and nephews laughing together. Look at Ellen helping Catherine serve dessert from mismatched plates. Look at Richard actually talking to his brothers instead of networking. This is the Whitman family standard. Connection over appearance, love over luxury. She looked around, seeing perhaps for the first time what she'd tried so hard to eliminate: the beautiful chaos of family, sticky fingers and grass stains, burnt hot dogs and cheap beer, children's laughter drowning out adult conversation. I don't know how to do this, she admitted quietly. Then learn, or don't. But either way, the family's moving forward. The only question is whether you're coming with Yusi. Left her standing there and returned to my blanket, where Lily had crawled into my lap and Max was excitedly explaining fireworks to his grandfather. James caught my eye and smiled, and I knew he was thinking the same thing I was. This messy, loud, imperfect gathering was worth more than 5 years of country club events. The work started and Lily covered her ears at the first boom before peeking through her fingers in delight. Around us, the Whitman family sprawled across Catherine's lawn. No assigned seating, no perfect timing, no one monitoring volume levels or behavior. Just family being family. Mummy, Lily whispered during a quiet moment between explosions. I like this party better than the fancy ones. Me too, baby. Me too. Carolyn stayed through the fireworks, sitting stiffly on the edge of the gathering. But I caught her smiling once, when her daughter abandoned perfect posture to lie in the grass with her cousins, pointing at the sky with unrestrained joy. Change doesn't happen overnight. Caroline still struggled with casual gatherings, still flinched at spills. still occasionally made comments about proper behavior, but she showed up and slowly by gathering she learned what I'd known all along, that funding family events had never been about the money. It had been about creating space for connection, and sometimes the best thing you can do for a space that has become toxic is to stop paying rent and build something new. The Whitman family gatherings continued. Smaller, simpler, but somehow bigger in all the ways that mattered. Potlucks replaced caterers. Backyards replaced country clubs. Paper plates replaced fine china, and all children were always welcome, because that's what family means. Not perfection or performance or proper behavior, just showing up, chaos and all, and knowing you belong.